Hello, everybody. A good afternoon, and I hope you've had your lunch. So I'm Iza, and I'll be your host for today. Hope everyone is doing great and, of course, staying safe at home. Thank you to those who are here early. Do say hello or good afternoon in the live chat if you are here. We have exciting webinars planned for the year. So if you would like to be in the loop and receive additional materials from the webinar, don't forget to check in via the QR code on the screen or the link in the description box and live chat. So throughout the webinar, feel free to leave your questions in the live chat for us to address them during the Q&A session. All right, so a quick introduction to DGX before we begin. DGX is Digi's venture builder arm. Our focus is to help Malaysian companies of all sizes solve problems by digitalizing their operations through our digital solutions, AltHR, Omni Hotline, and iFleet. So today we have two very special guests with us. So the first one is Camelia Loh, the founder and CEO of Kabel. Hi, Camelia.
Hi, Lisa. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. And we also have Michelle Lau, who is the Employer Branding Manager at Digi Telecommunications. Hi.
Hello.
So good to have both of you. Hi and welcome. So before we dive into the topic of how humanizing the recruitment process can get you top talents, I'd like to invite Michelle and Camelia to briefly introduce themselves. Let's go ahead and start with Camelia.
Hi. My name is Camelia. Good afternoon to everybody, and thanks for investing time to attend this webinar. I'm the founder and the CEO of Kabel. Kabel is a Tinder-like recruitment app that connects line manager directly to the job seekers so that they can align in terms of their values, purpose, goals, and expectation before any hiring to take place. Thank you, Iza.
Okay, all right. So this is just a picture of, like what the Kabel app looks like, just in case anybody is curious. So we'll talk about Kabel a little bit more later. Okay, over to you, Michelle.
Hello, everybody. My name is Michelle, and I am Digi's Employer Brand Manager. I started out my career in recruitment, actually. But as growth happens at Digi, when the opportunity came up to explore the employer brand role, I went for it, and so here I am. Happy to be here.
All right, great. So thank you so much for the introductions. We're very, very happy to have two very experienced guests on our webinar today. So let's go ahead and start deep diving into the topic. So based on your own views, what is meant by humanizing the recruitment process? Like, what does it mean to you? So we'll start with Camelia. Maybe you could give us a bit of insight. Oh, is Camelia stuck or is it me? Okay. Hello?
Is it a connection problem?
Oh, it's no worries. Okay, so I was just asking, what is meant by humanizing the recruitment process, like in your own words or in your own, views? We would love to hear what your insights are when you say humanizing the recruitment process. So we'll go ahead and start with Camelia.
Yeah, so when we say humanizing the recruitment process, it's referring to actually bringing back human into the practice, because we're talking about people are assets of organization, right? So what we're seeing out there is that when we do recruitment, there are many times that, all these applications go through machines, whichever that companies use and whatnot. So the missing element here is that the human part of it. Most of the application doesn't even reach to a human before they even get disqualified. So we want to bring that back into the recruitment process. That's what it means.
Okay, awesome. So what about you, Michelle? Like, what do you think humanizing the recruitment process means to you?
I think perhaps the element of automation or using something to intercept or make it easier or faster. I don't think it's total elimination of that, but perhaps in using the technology available to us, that there is still that interaction that makes it more intimate between the candidates and, of course, the hiring team at the end of the day. So I don't think total elimination, but of course a better integration or better development of such technologies, so that at every step of the way, there is still an element of a human touch, albeit delivered through technology.
Yeah. So I think that human touch is very important, especially now that we're not seeing anybody and it's not as simple as walking into an interview and meeting the hiring managers. The recruitment process has changed almost 180 ever since the pandemic started. So with that, right, what are some of like the common challenges that we see today from recruiters when it comes to the recruitment process due to the lack of humanization that we have nowadays? I think like both Camelia and Michelle would have a bit more insights as employers on the other side and hiring. So maybe we can start with Michelle on this one. Like, since you work very closely with the recruitment team over in HR, what do you see like are some of the challenges right now that people are facing, the recruiters especially?
I think the demand, or perhaps the application, hasn't really reduced in a way. That the jobs are still alive and kicking. Applications still come in. Headhunting activities have really, if we speak about momentum, hasn't seen a drop there. But perhaps it's more of fatigue in dealing with the virtual reality in this case. So we've totally gone 100% virtual at Digi from the very start. And at the beginning, it was all exciting, at the end of the day, we tell hiring managers as well as candidates, don't be afraid to be human. It's okay if you have internet issues and whatnot. Till today, that expectation of smooth experience is we tell them to allow some space for interruptions. But I guess it's more of, in the virtual world, we expect things to be instant. And if previously instant means now, I think now in today's terms, instant means I wanted it yesterday. So in terms of if I did the interview today, we see that because candidates in the market today, most if not a majority of them, they are those who've recently lost their jobs or perhaps looking out actively at the moment. So they're also in between other interviews. So perhaps the one challenge is everybody wants it quick, everybody wants it now, and they have also multiple offers to comprehend or to consider at the same time. So the challenge should be, number one, the fatigue of having to do so many interviews virtually these days. And the second is, of course, everybody wants it now or yesterday.
Okay, I totally understand you. Okay, how about you, Camelia? What do you think are some of the challenges that recruiters are facing during this time, or like what you've seen, maybe stories that you've heard? Yeah.
Yeah, so I totally agree with Michelle. Of course, the difference here is that those days when everything was not, done virtually, we still have got time to say, okay, I need to take a break. I'll drive to a certain cafe to meet you, and that's our break. But having the virtual, facilities or the solutions here means that you can actually do a back-to-back. And as a result, you're kind of like doing this marathon virtual, right? Okay. So coming from my side, I mean, I've been an external recruiter, meaning an executive search consultant since day one, right? So that's like a total of 16 years right now. Okay, my challenges may be quite different from an internal recruiter, right? But what I see is that when there's a lacking of humanization in the recruitment process, you will surely face challenges in terms of recruiting good candidates. Right, lacking the human element in the recruitment process directly impacts the quality of the candidate that you source and attract. So why do I say that, right? From my day-to-day engagement with candidates, especially for the past 10 years or so, right, they often ask about who the line managers are or who is the prospective leader. Now, this is a very important piece of information for the job seekers out there because they will want to know who is responsible for the career. Right, the prospective line manager is going to be the person that they will be working very closely with on a day-to-day basis and is directly responsible for the job satisfaction and performance. Right, we hear so many times and everywhere people say, I leave bosses, not companies, right? So this statement is actually very true when they scope their future job. So besides the line manager, the candidate will also ask about the future leaders' vision, mission, goals, expectations, right? And if you can see, right, recruiting with a JD, it's very hard to actually translate some of these needs of the job seekers to be in there. And especially so if, a vague JD, because it's a vague JD, is a natural repellent for qualified candidates to apply. So this is unfortunately happening in.
Oh, is it me or is Camelia a bit stuck?
Yeah, screen is frozen also.
Okay, we'll give it a couple of seconds. Oh, Camelia, I think yes, you're back. You're back.
Okay. So sorry for that. I don't know what's wrong with the line today. Yeah. Okay, so last but not least, did you know that if you connect like-minded people together through purpose and values, they definitely work better as they are usually more gung-ho, as it is something close to their heart. This is what I call the intrinsic motivator, right? Or the source of energy that drives people to achieve things. So it's good that we can draw this out right from the start of the recruitment process. So as you can see, all these elements, like I mentioned, line manager's background, their purpose, vision, mission, goal, expectations are not existing in the current recruitment process. So as a result, good candidates are not willing to take a chance from their current job to come to explore with you. So so when you don't put back the human element into recruitment process, you simply just don't yield better quality candidates. So that's from.
Oh dear. Okay. Okay, Camelia, you're back now. I think we missed probably the last 5 seconds of what you were saying.
Okay. I was just concluding it. I missed it. I was just
Okay.
saying that if you miss out the human element in the recruitment process, it's hard to get you the good type of candidates. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I just wanted to. I noticed that the title of this this webinar is about how humanizing the recruitment process can get you top talents, right? If I may just put it in my context, I think that there's no top talent that will survive in all organizations. I'd rather call it best fit rather than top talent. Because if you are top talent in company A, it doesn't mean that you'll make it in company B.
Yeah, very true. Okay, so you mentioned a little bit about, like having a very vague JD and how that doesn't translate if, people are not very detailed, especially when people are applying. So based on that sentence, so what should companies include then in their, job advertisements or job descriptions or even like interview sessions to better communicate their goals, values, and also expectations of the candidates? If both like you and Michelle have any advice to all the other companies or recruiters out there.
Michelle, you want to go first?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think if we speak about JDs, I would say don't overload information. We sometimes, for some reason, we always think that the more the merrier. In this case, you're overloading.
Yes.
As much as it is good to give a lot of information, I think it's more important in the writing style, or perhaps the words that we use and how you speak to the candidates using your JD. So one thing that I admire these days is companies are not afraid to put a bit of emotions into writing, or creative writing lah, as they say. So on the JD portion, I would say length is, in this case, don't be too long, don't be so lengthy. And writing style, be a bit more communicative, show a bit of emotions lah. After all, it's a human being writing the JD. As for interviews and all, I would say formalities aside, because it's still at a formal interview, a formal meeting between two parties, I would say it's always about presence for both parties. Don't come in, feeling all, your defenses are all high up. Like you don't want to show vulnerability for both sides, not just hiring managers and not just candidates. It's okay, it is also okay to address it during the interview. But yeah, presence when you're in a call that is virtual can also be felt, actually, because we're still seeing, we're still hearing. So I'd say those top 2 tips, I would say it will be easier to address. Then of course later on in the whole session, we'll address what the other parts that you can look into lah.
Totally agree with Michelle here. The length, is actually very important in the communication style, how you write and all that, right? Because however that you write, the language will only attract you a certain type of candidates. That's number one, right? And the length of JD, I mean, honestly speaking, when it's too long and it doesn't really relate, it's kind of like difficult to gauge, what is actually happening there. And we have got very short attention span. I'm not sure whether you ladies actually realize that as long as we put our eyes onto a piece of paper and within the 6 seconds you cannot get my interest, I will just close that document and move on to something else. Yeah, correct? Yeah. So at least on my side as an external recruiter, for the past many years, or maybe it's because, it's a style that all companies actually go scout around everywhere and then they cannot find, they will come to me, right? I realized that a lot of people actually use recycled JD. things that probably already like exist in 10 years ago. And then sometimes we still can even see the JD with the date, created date, like, wow, 10 years ago, how can I even use this JD to, when the environment is very different at the moment, right? So that's one. Another thing maybe you can try is that, curating your job ads using the SMART approach, the specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and timely approach. So example, instead of saying to meet and manage all key accounts in order to meet the target, it's like, duh, if you are a
Okay, I think Camelia is...
sorry, are we back?
Okay, yeah, you're back.
Yeah, so the SMART approach, right? So instead of actually saying, to meet and manage all accounts in order to meet the target, it's like to a sales manager, meeting target is everything, right? So you can try creative writing, like what Michelle said, right? Keep track of key activities and prioritize on the top 20% of the customers and grow sales by 15% by end of 2021, or if you want to even be more specific, by December 2021. That kind of stuff. Yeah, so that would be my recommendation.
Awesome. Okay, so what I'm getting is, be specific, share information, but not too much where it gets a bit overloaded. And also the writing style, you don't have to follow every single, template that we see online on how to write a JD, because that one is, it sounds to a certain point a bit robotic, and to add a bit of personality and flair as well. And that could actually, like show a bit of the company culture as well. And yeah. Awesome. Okay, so now that we've talked about like the JD and all of that, so during the interview process, right, how can it be like personalized, and how can hiring managers best assess culture fit of a candidate, especially, when it's online, you don't really get to see, the body language that well. How can you assess culture fit a lot better? Michelle, do you want to go first?
Okay. I always feel that setting the mood, getting it right from the start is best. So I think a lot of people forget that the first minute or the moment you walk into a room is the start of the impression. I take myself for an example here. I met my interviewer at Digi in the toilet, in the washroom, and I didn't know it was her. It so happened I was there, and my current boss, she was there. She was right next to me, washing her hands. I was like, oh, hello. Lo and behold, surprise, we were in the same room not 10 seconds later. So in this case, I would say setting it right, the mood from the start would be best, because three things come to mind. The first thing for both sides, but I would emphasize on the hiring manager side, because candidates are always over prepared. But for the hiring manager side, number one is show interest. Yeah, read the CV beforehand. Don't come in and then start reading. If don't blame it on your meetings. You always have maybe a minute to take a quick glance. Number two is, of course, be present during the session in itself. Get it right from the first minute, and then you would see that it follows through till the last second of the session. Be present, not looking at each other, eye contact only. It's about putting away your mobile phone, distractions, and finding a sweet spot on the chair just to be comfortable, even if it takes a few more adjustments. But yeah, be present, because as a candidate, I can feel it if your mind is elsewhere, but your eyes is looking at me. I can really feel it. The third thing is, of course, I would say have empathy. So I don't want to touch so much about the majority of the interview where you discuss the job and culture and all, because if you don't get it right from the start, and I'm focusing on empathy here, there's already a distance or a gap existing already, because that person is trying to assess you like, how do I gauge how I ask you this question? How are you going to respond to my question? And if I'm focusing on that, whatever I've practiced before instantly gets changed. I instantly become robotic. I suddenly sit up straight. I'm no longer relaxed. You can see it, tense shoulders and all. So when you assess fit, I would say that when you have this tree, which is number one, of course, show interest, be present, as well as have empathy, you'd see that it's easier for you to see a truer or realer personality for you as a hiring manager to gauge the candidate, and also vice versa. So in this case, to assess culture fit, I think everybody has their own method. At Digi, it's we always say, just ask the questions you really want to know about the candidate lah. Don't ask those personal private stuff. Steer clear from there. But don't also talk about the job as if the person is already here and the person understands the job. Understand, the peripheral or the periphery aspects of being an employee at Digi. So sometimes they approach it by giving you or telling you about the fun stuff or fun events or quick fun facts about Digi. Sometimes they tell you about like, hey, have you ever experienced, office like this? And they also, maybe they don't ask any questions whatsoever, but they allow the candidate to decide the flow. And if you can carry a conversation, if you're comfortable with the conversation, you can really tell whether or not at the end of the day or at the end of the session, whether it's been a successful one, whether or not interest is existing or present on both sides. Otherwise, it would just be any other interview, robotic from start to end.
Okay. Yeah, very great insights. How about you, Camelia? How do you think, how can recruiters make it a more humanized experience and, to best assess culture fit during this time? Oh, I think you're on mute. Hold on. Let me unmute. Okay.
Okay. So I think that that's a great question. I mean, cultural fit has been one of the main topics of, recruiters, and like you said, right? How do we make sure that we are recruiting somebody who is culture fit? But, the concept of culture fit here has long been misunderstood, in my opinion, resulting in a very ineffective way of recruiting. Yeah, through, I would say, quite unreliable measures. That's my opinion. Yeah, because culture fit you're talking about is to be able to, asking the interviewer, could you see themselves being friends with the candidate, based on how much you like the person? Okay, and I think that is very dangerous because there's no parameters to measure capability and performance of that particular individual. All right, having said that, Michelle, I totally agree with you. Having empathetic understanding, the person and all that needs to come into play. But in my opinion, I think that if you could actually find people that have, when I say like-minded, we're talking about the same purpose. Like me and my team, our purpose here is to change how the recruitment world is, being done right now, because we think that the machines out there are, something that we want to make do about. It's unfair. It's not, giving a good just, to human capabilities. So when I recruit, I use that purpose to actually pitch to all my candidates or my, prospective employee and tell them this is what I want to do. If you feel strongly for this statement, please, we can talk, right? And you can come from any sort of background. It doesn't really quite matter. Maybe it's easier for us because we're in HR. HR has got many dimensions, and so it's easier for us to actually, assess. But I understand also there are some, positions that are very technical related, that it's either you have it or you don't have it. Okay, that's fair. So when it's related more towards the technical side, I would rather use the approach of the SMART earlier. All right. So if I have a JD and it's very clearly written SMART by my client, I will actually use that to gauge the capabilities and the performance of that particular person. So just now I said that, sales growth by 15% by December 2021. To some people, that may be just too slow. Like, what? Only 15%? No, I want to be a little bit more gung-ho. I think I can do 30%, or it can be vice versa, right? So I use that as basically a gauge for me to understand, okay, how fast is this person working? How dynamic this person is? I'll understand the challenge behind, the current existing challenge, or maybe, from their past experience, and I use that to actually gauge whether they can perform well or not in that job. How far the gap is. And of course, I'm not looking for somebody who can fit 10 out of 10. That's dangerous, because no talents will come and talk to you unless you provide them something, right? So the something here is, if I were to join this particular organization with that position that you're exploring with me, what can I learn? What can I learn from the line manager? What can I learn from the job itself. And if it gives me enough stretch, then it becomes a compelling reason for me to consider. Yeah,
Yep.
so that's how I
Awesome.
would do it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I think nowadays when you apply for a job online or when you go to a job portal and apply for a job, all people seem to get are automated emails, and then if they pass through, then they'll get called to an interview. But if they don't, then that's the end of it, you know? And there's no personalization. It's all very automatic and robotic, and you don't really feel, you know, it's not a very great candidate experience, I would say. So
Yeah.
what can companies do to create, you know, like a more good personalized candidate experience based on your views? Okay, maybe we can start with Camelia.
Okay, that's an excellent question to highlight, yeah. So which is important, you know, of offering compelling candidate experience, as you mentioned, because failure to do so could have a negative implication for the brand image. I'm quite sure Michelle can say a lot about that because employer branding, So in fact, I read somewhere it's 72% of candidates share their negative experiences online, and it's not unheard of, you know, for harrowing stories to spread like wildfire on social media channels, and then Michelle will wake up in the morning and see all this news and oh my god, what are they talking about Digi? Okay, so to ensure that your company is actually giving a good candidate experience, you know, one needs to consider the candidate journey, right? The sequence, what it means here is that the sequence of events from the moment that they're aware of the vacancy right up to their onboarding. Now, it's usually like a funnel, right? Like doing a sales or something where it involves 7 steps: awareness, consideration, interest, application, selection, hire, and then onboarding. I won't be touching on all of the steps, but you know, we'll draw you on some high-level info that what Kabel can provide. Now, let me just bring to your context, right? With digitization and hyper competition, you've got all positions out there, right? Ready available. Candidates hold higher expectation for their day-to-day life, including hiring process, right? We have, for example, on-demand apps like YouTube, Spotify, Netflix, and all that spoiling us with the whole entire user experience, right? Everything has become so intuitive. You know, you don't need to search for the videos to watch Netflix and YouTube, or even Facebook also can just, you know, recommend those videos that you may like. So, and it's different, you know, it's a different set of videos for you, and you realize for even your partner. So it's what we call personalized here, right? So I imagine that hiring and job seeking would have to do the same to a certain extent, right? So in the near future, you might just, you know, have to say, okay, Google, or hey, Siri, find me a job. How wonderful is that? And they will recommend you jobs that are relevant to your background. Or if you're hiring someone and say like, you know, hey, Siri, I want to hire a product manager. Do you have anybody to recommend me within the radius of 20 km? You know, and then you get relevant candidates instead of waiting for them to apply, sending resumes, right? Wouldn't we all like that as a candidate, right? So that's what I think a good personalized candidate experience would be. So that's just number one, because we're all spoiled, right, by all the wonderful apps out there. And then number two, most of the better candidates do take time to consider. And I realize a lot of my clients, if they say that, okay, Camelia, I need you to search for this, you know, on my executive search capacity, not on Kabel, okay? They tell me, nah, I want this, let me know the update in the next 3 days. Good talents got no time for me, and I need to give them time to consider. They need to do their research, right? And it's an open source, and information about your company and line managers can be found on social media pages, correct? And so this is where the principles of employer branding comes into play, right? Your brand needs to, you know, have consistency across all communication channel, be it your social media, word of mouth, company pages, and even job description to a certain extent, right? So the best brands find ways to take the internal narrative of a satisfied employee and turn it to an external narrative that attracts candidates. And that's the best marketing, employee advocates, right? And then always remember that hiring is a two-way decision, right? Ease of application, consistent and punctual communication. We hear a lot about being ghosted, and not to mention the transparent representation of the company culture, values, you know, they're all telltale signs, you know, if your company is organized, professional, or even an attractive place to work. So never go silent on the candidate. You treat them like as if you are treating your customer because they are important. 72%, or if they have negative feedback on your company, that's it. It's just like how they complain a certain restaurant not responding to their I don't know what delivery, and then that's it. The next thing is like it spread like a bushfire. Yeah. So that's from my side. Yeah.
Yeah, I think back when I was looking for jobs as well, I would always go on Glassdoor and read about the company and the reviews that they have. And on Glassdoor, they make it very easy. They have a pros, cons, comments. So it's as simple as just reading that list, and you already can gauge
Right.
what the company is
Correct.
like. And the moment
Yes.
you give somebody a very bad experience, there goes your reputation, not just on Glassdoor, on Twitter, on Instagram, everywhere that these people want to share. Okay, so what about you, Michelle? What are your thoughts on, like creating a good personalized candidate experience?
I think everything that Camelia said is very on the dot correct. In fact, we are also trying to, I would say, not just introduce a candidate journey, but of course, replicate that journey, not just with one candidate, but of course, a larger group. But I guess here in speaking with the technicalities, of having an updated site, job description that speaks to you, to your heart, touches your heart and everything. Of course, there's that reality, right? That, as you mentioned, Isa, that most of the time is you apply, you don't hear back, and then the job closes. I think that reality is a bit of something for us to understand is that for one role, if it is a mass hire role, there's bound to be hundreds of applications, if sometimes it goes to thousands. And of course, everybody wants personalized approach, or perhaps treatment from the recruiter or the hiring team from the company. And unfortunately, we don't have that sort of resources all the time. And often the comments that come or appear on our all these public sites would be, nobody is replying to me. And of course, as an employer brand manager, we feel a bit, ayo, my efforts all down the drain because of that one comment. But I think in hindsight, what my manager would say is, if you've done really well on one end, which is you've updated your all your publicly available resources to really depict or picture the G's culture, if you've really done your best to screen through, but you just happen to miss one or two out, and then you kena that kind of comment, right? Don't take it to heart, not all the time, but think about how that person would be feeling. And if you were in that person's position, that's why empathy is very important, yeah, guys. Think about how that person is feeling. So that's why when our approach to responding to comments like this, because Camelia has highlighted the good parts, and I really like the way she put it. But on the reality side, how we would address is, of course, address the comments individually if we can. And that's what we're also trying to do on LinkedIn, especially because that's quite a common platform for a lot of professionals. At times where we can't reach out to them, especially on organically produced or sourced feedback such as Glassdoor and Indeed, sometimes the feedback is just there for everyone to view, and it affects your rating no matter how much effort you put in. I think it's also good to see what they are pointing towards. And in this case, if they're pointing towards previous interview experiences, that is your clue to hone in on that, something that the person has experienced. And the good thing is that these platforms tell you what positions they apply for, when they attended the interview, what stage, so you can already pinpoint. The other thing is, of course, like I said earlier on, humanizing the process is not about eliminating technology. I do pray and hope one day that technology enables a team of recruiters, because usually it's one or two managing a role, that team of recruiters to address everybody who has applied. And I do hope and one day that technology enables that. If today automated messages is still the way, but by no means are you not important. It just means that perhaps in this case, you're not the right fit for the role. Hence, there is no response from the hiring team.
Okay, awesome. So you mentioned about, like mass hiring, and I'm from what I can tell is, mass hiring will usually include roles like retail, maybe entry-level positions where companies are often hiring more of these people. So how then can a company humanize the recruitment process for, when hiring for like these bigger roles? So even if we use like automated emails, other than that, would there be a possible way for us to personalize this process for the candidates? What do you guys think?
Interesting question, right? Because that's what we're looking for an answer for. Often at times, companies, when at this size, right, when you're working with shared centers or perhaps shared business operation centers, usually they work with an agency, and that agency represents the intermediary. Otherwise, I would say that they hold perhaps a mass hiring fair, or I think they call it a recruitment fair, or they invite you for an assessment center, and at the end of the day, they select a few of them. So I honestly don't have the solution for that. I'm quite keen to hear what Camelia has to say, because she's already on that front of tech and Tinder for for recruitment, right? So yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's
Okay,
a very
great.
fair question, and like what you said, right? It's am I hang again?
Oh no, you're here.
No, okay.
Oh, good. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. So I think personalization, requires a good balance of human and tech intervention, just like what Michelle said. I totally agree. So where Kabel and our solution comes into play is that our tech manage the filtering of the candidates based on the hard requirements, example skills. So it's either you have it or you don't have it. So it saves you time and allow you to focus on being human, right? Human here refers to line managers. So line managers is, in my opinion, is the best assessor to find the best fit, rather than going through a centralized, what do you call that, recruitment, when you have, like Michelle said, two recruiters, but have to support how many stakeholders in the organization. Hats off to you all. Really very tough, right? If you to ask me, by right, each of the applicant should be given a chance to highlight who they are beyond hard technical skills. But in reality, cannot, right? It's a huge stack of CVs that you're talking about, that waste time and then make it impossible to give all the valid applicants a fair assessment. There are even more that I don't even mention of, that candidates don't even do their homework before they apply. Whether they're relevant or not relevant, they will still apply, right? So our push here again is to filter the hard requirements, save time, allow hirers to better address the human element in candidates. So my suggestion to this is to democratize the recruitment process. Allow each of the line manager to hire on their own, given the right tool like Kabel that requires minimal effort to churn out big outputs. And by saying this, right, is by no means that HR or recruitment managers will need to be a bystander. You guys need to play a more strategic role. For example, how you craft the JD, how you put a creative writing to get you to the right candidate. All these are, elements of nurturing line managers' recruitment behavior. It's very important. A successful sales manager does not mean that they can recruit very well. It's as simple as that. So that's where the HR should come in to play a strategic role in this, nurturing the line manager.
Okay, yeah, I definitely agree, because the person that the candidate will be working for, the working for closely or like working to in the team would be the hiring manager. So if everybody else is the one assessing the person, then it might not be, the best fit, especially if the manager doesn't get along with the candidate.
Correct. And some of the companies that I view, they took the approach of expanding HR team, right, to address to the large number of applications, right? So in my opinion, instead of expanding HR team to do even more operational job, look for practices that scale up, right? Like I said, democratizing, and then play a strategic role, in terms of recruitment, training the managers on recruitment behavior, how to identify the right talents, how to do proper assessment and all that. I think that is more strategic role. That's more strategic than just keep hiring and do the, the rat chase again and again, doing the same operational job. Yeah. How many HR can you hire, right, to support the whole entire organization? Yeah.
Okay, great. So there's also a one question that I have. Maybe this one is more suited for Michelle. So how would you Do you have any once candidates are successfully recruited and they've joined, they've passed all the interview stage, what can the HR personnel out there do to humanize the onboarding process, especially during the pandemic?
So interestingly is I think the expectations for a good onboarding experience doesn't dissipate just because it's virtual. In fact, it's heightened because it's virtual, because people talk about gamifying the experience to make it more interactive. They want more question and answer sessions. Having also managed onboarding sessions, I'd say that onboarding sessions, though can be fun, it's also intimidating for new joiners. I say this not because it's want to scare people into thinking like, wow, your first day you have to be so in Chinese you say kwai kwai, you behave. No, it's not so much that. I think it's because of really you didn't set expectations from the start that, okay, everybody, today is a very relaxing, albeit full of knowledge sharing, but it's going to be a relaxing session. You don't know, just ask, So I think, again, going back to my point, it's always setting the mood. In humanizing the onboarding process, right? At Digi, I think I can only speak for Digi because I've only done onboarding here. We try our best to include elements where we want to hear what you have to say. So question and answer, the chat box is constantly open throughout that onboarding session. Any sort of question you want to put through, come put it through and we'll answer you. And at the same time, the presenter, right? This is my advice or perhaps reminder to my presenters or to Digi's presenters, is that don't be afraid to loosen up yourself, because you are telling the audience to loosen up, but you yourself are so uptight and you're like reading a script. Then of course people don't know how to ask you a question, because they think you have a script to follow and you have a time to keep and you're gonna go out the door or leave the room when you're done. So I appreciate speakers who take the initiative to play it up during their session. In fact, it's a breath of fresh air, because we do onboarding every month at least twice. And you see the same thing as an organizer, you see the same thing day in, day out. And when they surprise you with sweet, quick surprises like that, right? It's very nice to hear, because you see that the new joiners see Digi in a different light. Because what's really unfortunate is that new joiners since March last year have not been able to experience Digi 100% physically. And they always say first impression counts the most. And in this case, first impression is virtual. So we do our best to really get your involvement, the new joiners' involvement. But at the same time, don't forget that as humans, sometimes you forget to turn on your mic. It's okay, like, alamak, so sorry, I was speaking to myself all the time. Don't be afraid to make, short quips like that, because it really lowers the defenses, or perhaps lowers the uptightness of people. And what I also realize is that when they see that the speaker is really comfortable, or perhaps not afraid to show some vulnerability, they themselves will start to open up a little more with you. And during an onboarding session, right? Yes, you have, I think, topics to cover and time to keep. But as long as you keep it open and people just are comfortable with it, you'd see that no matter the time you finish, as long as it's not more than an hour or perhaps 30 minutes from the end time, you'd see that they have actually learned more than when you kept to it so strictly. So I'd say don't be afraid to be vulnerable in that sense, especially in onboarding.
All right, awesome. So to the audience watching, if you guys have any questions, don't forget to put them in the live chat. So while you guys are drafting your questions and sending them in, I'll just go ahead and ask for another question. So on LinkedIn especially, you always see the youths, especially people who have just recently graduated, saying that they've been applying for so many jobs and they aren't able to secure one. It's very sad, because it's not as easy as it was before the pandemic, at least to me. So do you have any tips for these youths who are applying for jobs, on what probably they can do better during this time, and flipping on the other side of the coin, do you have tips for like employers if they're looking for fresh graduates? What should they do in like during this pandemic, to make it more accessible for these people, because we see a lot of these youths on LinkedIn who are still struggling to get a job. Yeah.
Camelia, you'd like to go first?
Okay, I'll take it first. I think first of all, we also want to advise all the job seekers, including the fresh grad, to be human in the first place and to understand, right, that when you apply for a job, you need to understand the job first before you apply for it, right? So do your homework, right? There are a few steps that you need to take to get you noticed in the first place, lah. Okay, for example, invest in your, in building a good resume that represents you well, but don't stop at just having a resume. I think in today's world, having just a piece of resume, which is a document of yourself, is not sufficient anymore. Okay, you can build your personal branding by leveraging on social media pages. For example, LinkedIn will be the best place to go to, where all the HR managers are there. Then you can also start networking and build your rapport with line managers. At any point in time, if you're able to actually show off your capability, even though if it's your hobby, right? Take the opportunity to actually speak on something, right? I find that most of the, HR or even line managers out there on LinkedIn are very approachable. All right, if you leave a good comments, for example, you will easily get yourself noticed. Then, last but not least, I think strategically target on companies and jobs that can leverage on your, purpose, interest, strength, and with the skills that you already have. Even if it means that you spend most of the time doing what esports. Esports is tough, You need to multitask. You need to have, to a certain extent, you need to have project management, leadership skills, and whatnot on virtual. And now we're smack in the middle of actually virtual world, right? I think that there's a fantastic, story to tell about yourself, how you actually lead a gang of people playing in that particular strategy game that you have and make that your skills, right? I think don't be shy to, brand yourself like this in your CV. But of course, don't go and story the whole, the whole play lah, right? Okay, then on the flip side, on tips, right? Tips of employers when they're recruiting fresh grad. I think the most common evaluation on fresh grads, will be academic results, right? If I can say, and perhaps some extra co activities that they have joined during the uni days, right? So apart from these two things, what you can do is, again, apply empathy, right? Ask them about their interests, and this will give you an insight on things that they love to do. For example, the esports just now. Ask them what skills are required in order for them to sustain their interests. They can play for hours, and getting bashed from everybody, unknown people sometimes, right? That's a skill, right? So the better ones will be able to align their skills based on their job requirements. But then again, they are not trained, right? So have empathy. Ask them, poke them, probe them, to extract all the skills out. So besides that, maybe evaluate their agility and their flexibility, right? By asking them, what have you been doing, while waiting for a job during the pandemic? Now, if they tell you nothing, okay, that's probably a big, big red flag over there. So give attention to those, I feel, who invest time in learning and upskilling, right? Whether they say they sign up for workshops, interview skills workshop, whatsoever, as long as they actually proactively find ways to upskill themselves. So in these times where everything is done from home, right, we need people who are initiative, proactive, and independent. So you wouldn't want to hire somebody who said, oh, no, nothing, I just wait for result lah. Because we all work from home, right? There will be times where we say, okay, nothing to do, okay lah, we just chill and relax, you know what I mean? Many opportunities for us to do that, right? The existing ones who are already being employed. Yeah, so we want to, I think that this is a good assessment, to put on hiring fresh grads.
Okay, awesome. All right, so I think since we are running short of time, let's go ahead and start with the Q&A. I see a lot of really great questions in the live chat. So can we have the first question up on the screen, please? Okay, Roslan Bakri Zakaria asks, if you are unable to go beyond 6 seconds of a CV, how then is CV be done differently and still meet the rigid and almost relic demands of recruiters that still demand somewhat of an old CV format? Ooh, good question. Okay, Michelle, do you want to take this first?
Sure, Ruslan, very valid question. I would say that this is the soalan cepumas for almost all recruiters out there, right? So I think a CV is I wouldn't say that we can get rid of it, because at the end of the day, as a recruiter, we click on a CV and we have probably the first 10 seconds to evaluate whether or not we want to read it. It's crude, it's cruel, but that's reality, because we go through so many CVs in a day. But I tell you, if I could help you in a way that could really produce results, is the art of storytelling. And I say this not because I'm an employer brand manager, no. It's because I always think that if you can story tell, even if it's the first 10 seconds of me seeing your CV, you can really get my attention through that. And storytelling is not asking you to come up with poems or sajaks and things like that. No. It's more about in the first page in itself, because most of the time it's the first pager that we gauge our response on. What do you want me to know? And if you're applying to a role that's really relevant to what you've done in the past, say 10, 20 years of your career, right? What do you want me to see in the first page? Because most likely I will not go to the other pages if I'm not interested. So reality bites really hard in this case, but if you're like me and you have no ounce of creativity in your system, use free software tools such as Canva or any other tools out there that can help you out with creatively or coming up with a creative, eye-catching resume. And trust me, it works, because besides words, we're also attracted by colors. So in this case, right, look back at your CV. If you think it's world-class, like art piece by Leonardo da Vinci, right? Look at it again, because if it's not producing the result, then there's probably something not there or something that you're not telling us in the first pager. And of course, if demands of the recruiter that I still want a plain CV that fulfills this, then probably ask yourself, should I be dealing with this recruiter in the first place? If you claim to be so far ahead, advanced technology company, but you still want the same old CV, probably not the company I want to be joining. So correct. Not at that point in time, perhaps.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. All right, Camelia, would you like to take this, or should we move to the next question?
I think my comments are pretty much similar to Michelle. She gave 10 seconds. I'm saying 6 seconds for me. Sorry, it's even more crude. But again, that's reality. I think, when you said that, highlighting the, using colors to attract attention and also to show off a little bit about your personality. Things that I look out for is perhaps also how easy is it for me to read, whether it's point form or you panjang punya cerita, like writing a karangan or something like that really wouldn't work for me. It's not that I am not interested, but I would need to sit longer and to extract those information. Another thing is that the creative writing, this really attracted me. I saw someone's CV. She's not very highly qualified or whatsoever, but she used, besides her showing off her personality, which is a red and black, very Air Asia, fun kind of thing. And then something else caught my attention there in the summary to say that, I'm able to multitask, blah, 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 and all that. But I make it a point, for me to bring joy and comfort to my organization or my team. That's really being human, I think, showing off a little bit of personality and your flair a bit, in the CV. I think that is really unique.
Awesome. Okay, very great insights. Let's move on to the next question, please. Safina Muhammad Zain asks, how can a phone interview be communicated better to focus on identifying candidates' strengths than degrading candidates' quality from a piece of paper or resume in a short 10 minutes call? Okay.
Really, you want to go first?
Okay. I'm not sure about on Michelle's side, but on my end, I wouldn't even give the 10 minutes call if it didn't really pass my 6 seconds. So I'm so guilty of that 6 seconds, right?
Yep.
I wouldn't call that 10 minutes to actually have the intention to degrade you. That's probably somebody wanting to give you that opportunity, right? And so you, with that 10 minutes or so, and you must understand that all recruiters are very busy. I mean, not because they don't want to layan you. They really get tons of CVs. Like, you know, one job application sometimes go up to 1,000, like Michelle said, right? So even that 10 minutes call, right? It's the most that they can give you. And when they do give you that, you're already up one level, and make the best out of that 10 minutes. So be concise, you know, be sure of what you want to sell. So good things that you can actually summarize is your skills, how you have actually used your skill to, you know, achieve certain things in your current organization or maybe the past. Pick one that is like, you know, can make you shine, and then tell the recruiter what exactly that you're looking for in this role. If you know which role you're going for, that is, right? I'm assuming, Safina, that you know what you're applying for. So be prepared. Yeah.
Okay. Michelle, do you want to add on to anything, or shall we move to the next question?
Yeah, probably take the next one lah.
Okay. Let's have the next question from Adina Aminuddin. How does the usage of bot/RPA, which stands for robotic process automation, in a recruitment process humanize the interaction? As most companies these days have some form of automation in the application or screening process. We briefly spoke about this just now. Okay, Michelle, your thoughts?
I think I go back to my sentiments earlier, which is this is still something that we need to explore as users of technology in the new age of the digital space. Because we can't run away from the fact that almost every aspect of our digital life so far we have interacted with bots. And bots have made it, RPA or robotic process automation has made it easier for us to, as Camelia mentioned, for you to find the next video on YouTube, you don't even have to look, it's there, it's recommended. And most of the time you click on it because there's something that hit. And as for really humanizing the entire recruitment using a bot or RPA, right? I think we have to get over the fact that we're chatting with a bot. You have to get over the fact. You have to also get past the fact that the bot cannot help you as best as a human can. Because every time when we ask ourselves or have a problem, right, we always want instant solution. So if you want instant solution, now on our end, right, the product end, right, we'll be thinking, okay, let me give you all the FAQs. Maybe that can help you out. And most of the time it does, but what happens if it goes to the second level? Now that's where the human interaction comes in. So again, I'd say that understand that the bot isn't there to dehumanize anything at all. It is there to help you out with the first level inquiries or first level stuff. And you most likely find that wherever your products or perhaps any sort of apps that you use these days, right? When your problem can't be solved in the first level, you most likely find yourself in contact with a customer consultant or customer care consultant next. So yeah, just understand that I think perhaps also us on our end, how do you make it more personalized in this case? That they feel that they're being cared for, but via a bot or via RPA. That's still to be discovered. So Adina, let's keep in touch or stay tuned for the next stage of product development.
Yeah, I think when you talk about bots, they're actually there to make the process faster for people instead of, slower. So we do need them. And although we want everybody to have that human touch, bots are definitely necessary, especially in today's world. But yeah. Okay. Camelia, would you like to add on to this?
I think I totally agree with what Michelle said. Finding and striking the good balance and having the expectation that, a chatbot is a chatbot. It's just used to filter only the hard requirements, the ones that is a yes, no, but anything beyond that, you definitely will need to deal with the human representation.
Okay, awesome. All right, so let's move on to the next question. HT Tan, hi Camelia, can share more on smart approach in your view? Ooh, okay.
Share more on smart approach. Okay, so basically it's just a sentence, all right, that states that it should be specific, measurable, attainable, reliable and timely as well. So how would I say this? Usually it will make your sentences more concise, right? Because you're targeting a specific situation, right? With the specific situation, you can also mention what are the kind of tasks that you have actually put into it, what's your role into it. And as a result, okay, this is basically a tangible result, a tangible impact within that particular timeline. So with that approach, you can just basically sum up, maybe sometimes you use a whole paragraph into just one particular sentence. So it's padat, it's compact. So it's very easy to read, and it can be, if you're asking about the resume, I mean, SMRT approach is used everywhere else also, yeah, not just the resume, but just to make it easy to read and eye-catching, it will just give you that point form. Yeah. Hope that answers your question. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's move on to the next question. Text saying, if Kabel filters based on skills, then isn't it based on what is on the CV, not the candidate themselves? Do job seekers then need to put in keywords in their CVs to match the relevant jobs? So this is a very Kabel specific question. Camelia, would you like to take this?
Okay, so thanks for the question, Dixon. So do job seekers then need to put in keywords? No, all right, because the keywords and whatnot and the relations are already handled back end. Yeah, so things like, for example, if you're a product manager, you could also be proposed as a brand manager somewhere else. Yeah, so it filters based on skills. Another advantage here is that, we can also assist with that skills to cross, it's a transfer skill, to cross to another industry to make it, you available for the other industry as well. So people like, for example, a brand manager in telco can always go into FMCG. Just one of the examples. So it's not just based on keyword search. And in fact, we are going deeper into AI as well. I'm not a technical expert here. My CTO co-founder is. So if you like to find out further, perhaps we can have another session on this. Yeah, but at the moment, keyword search is what you would probably find at the first level of artificial intelligence. Queen keyword, output is that particular keyword. Yeah.
Okay, so since we're slightly over time, let's take one more last question before we wrap up the session. So the next question is from Islan Zulfikri. Do you have any advice on how humanization can be maintained even after recruitment and onboarding so that top talents or best talents can be developed and retained? Okay, Michelle, would you like to take this? Yeah.
I let go after I do the recruitment. That's it. Bye-bye.
Okay, let's see. Is this question to HR, management, the team? Okay, let's take it from the team lah, because that's mostly where the new joiner has the most interaction with. I'd say, wow, this is like really not textbook, but I'd say, right, don't appear standoffish. Don't appear as if you're a know-it-all. Now, this is a new joiner. Don't appear like you know everything. And it's okay if you don't know everything. If you don't know anything, it's also fine, because it's your first day, it's your first week. It's totally understandable. But admit to the fact that you don't know everything, but I can ask. And that's what I encourage new joiners to do, is to really ask. Even if you find it the most silliest question, right? You think that it's silly, but most of the time I don't think it's silly, because most of the time I do the answering. So just ask, because you're still at that sweet spot of, I'm new to this place. Now, for the other side, that is the team or the HR, be approachable, be also available to answer these questions. At the end of the day, you're here longer than this person has. You're also the subject matter expert or the SME that this person is trying to seek information on. And know that going to you, or reaching out to you, is not for fun. It's because they want to know or want to solve something, want to get something done out of the way to really, lessen that nervousness or that stress to do with being new. So I would say be approachable in that sense. You don't have to be, for example, if you're an introvert, not asking you to be an extrovert, but I'm just saying if you can just be a bit more friendlier than usual, that will definitely help ease that process. But in terms of maintaining humanization, right, maybe not harp on the term of humanization, but how do you be a friend and not just a colleague to that new person? Because at the end of the day, right, it really would help a lot if I can talk to you about anything from my first day onwards. And if that is not available to me as a new joiner, I don't know how else to open up really. Then as a company, you've got it wrong already. Yeah. So some companies have buddy systems, certain companies don't. But certain companies have a HR team that is available throughout the office hours, and they're definitely there to help. So in this case, I would say, ask yourself, what is the culture of the company? At Digi, it's keep engagement upwards, and ask if you don't know. And it's okay if you fail at the first run and you get it right the next time around, but don't be afraid of trying. So this kind of things, it goes back to the culture, it goes back to the people, it really goes back to what you value most in the company. And just ask. Be like a little kid again, who was very curious to ask, and no qualms about asking anybody at all any question you want. Yep.
Okay, that's a brilliant way to wrap up our Q&A session. So thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. That is all the time that we have for today. Really great questions, really great insights from both Camelia and Michelle. Thank you so much for joining us today. Please feel free to email us at hello@althr.my if you have any more questions. And again, thank you very much for watching. We hope you enjoyed this webinar. Stay safe, stay healthy, and see you soon. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Is this familiar to you? Spending hours manually calculating payroll, misplacing claim receipts, struggling to engage with employees? What if there was a way to automate HR and spend more time on the things that matter? Meet All HR, an all-in-one HR management software that simplifies HR processes for businesses. All HR has over 20 modules divided into 4 pillars. Core HR, which streamlines and digitalizes core HR operations such as leaves, expenses, payroll, and many more. Employee engagement, designed to boost employee productivity through check-ins, checklists, team calendar, and more. Digital workspace, which enhances the employee experience and gets your business digital ready through the help of rostering, time tracking, spaces, and so on. And perks and benefits that allow employees to enjoy added convenience through the All HR store and insurance. Alt HR is perfect for companies of all sizes, big and small. It's great for employees, even better for your HR team. Say goodbye to all your HR pains. Ready for a new and improved HR experience? Visit allhr.my to get started.